Well, good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Scott Manning coming to you from Scott Manning YouTube Sports Talk. I want to thank all of my loyal viewers for being with me tonight. It is now time for my college football podcast postgame. It is now time for the Scott Manning YouTube College Football Podcast postgame show. I want to thank all of you, my loyal viewers, for being with me here tonight. I've got a lot to talk about here in the next half hour, 45 minutes. I got to talk about Ohio State. Then it was upset Central. Notre Dame barely survived Pitt today. I'm going to hand out my game balls. I'm going to hand out my game of the day pick and my upset of the day pick. So let's just get started right away. We're going to have a great show. Let's have a great night. And let's get right into it and let's enjoy it. The Ohio State Buckeyes took care of the Minnesota Golden Gophers today, 30-14. I got to tell you something. For most of the game, I got to give credit where credit's due to the Golden Gophers. They took it to Ohio State. And with Georgia losing to LSU, I'll get to that here in a few minutes. The question is, will Clemson jump Ohio State? That remains to be seen. I'll wait until the polls come out and I'll give my opinion on that. But I will give Coach P.J. Fleck and the Minnesota Golden Gophers credit. They played Ohio State hard all day. I mean, they were a headache. Let's think about this for a second. They threw everything at us, including the kitchen sink. But in the end, Ohio State did come out on top. But think about this for a minute. Minnesota had 179 yards rushing on the ground against Ohio State. Ohio State could not stop the run attack. Ohio State only had 92 yards rushing total for the game. Let's keep this in mind. Dwayne Haskins, 33 of 44, 412 yards, 3 touchdowns. KJ Hill, 9 receptions, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day. But for Minnesota, they deserve a lot of credit too. Zach Anaxtan, 13 of 23, 218 yards. He was picked off twice. Muhammad Haranian, 23 carries, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Tyler Johnson, 8 receptions, 119 yards. Wow, what can you say? Now, for the numbers for the game. Ohio State had 28 first downs to Minnesota's 19. On third down, the money down. I call that the money down because it's a lot of money. This is where games are won or lost. Ohio State was 6 of 14 on third down today. Minnesota was 4 of 9. Total yards for the game. Ohio State had 504 to Minnesota's 397. Penalties. Ohio State was only penalized 5 times for 36 yards. Minnesota was nailed for 4 penalties for 60 yards. One of those penalties was a 15-yard targeting ejection where somebody from Minnesota got thrown out of the game. Turnovers. That proved to be costly for Minnesota. Minnesota turned the ball over 3 times. Ohio State didn't have 1. Time of possession. Ohio State did take that. So keep that in mind. But all in all, despite all this, I give the Minnesota Golden Gophers credit. They gave us a run for their money for 3.5 quarters. It was a battle. But then Ohio State pulled away in the end. Now, we face Purdue next week, and that's not going to be easy either. If we play like we did against Minnesota, we're going to lose to Purdue. Because you know Purdue, in the past, about 9 years ago, back in 2009, we had the best team. Purdue only had 1 win. They shocked us. And a lot of people are afraid it's going to happen again. Oh, excuse me. I will say this, though. Ohio State did what they had to do today. And that's where all the money was won. The Buckeyes are now 7-0 on the season. Now they can really do some damage in the college football playoff. Notre Dame could jump in now into the discussion with LSU knocking off Georgia. And I'll get to that here in a few minutes. But first, a lot of people said this was the game of the day. Number 7, Washington. Number 17, Oregon. Wow-wee! That was a ball game. Think about this. Oregon, number 17 Oregon upset number 7 Washington 30-27 in overtime. Justin Herbert, 18 of 32, 202 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. C.J. Verndell, 29 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns himself. Dylan Mitchell, he stepped up. 8 receptions, 119 yards, and 1 touchdown in the game. That was a performance. What a performance by Oregon when they looked like they were down and out. Now for the Huskies. Jake Browning, 15 of 25, 243 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Myles Gaskin did not look good. 15 carries for 69 yards. Salvon Ahmed, 11 carries for 61 yards. That was it. Think about this. Oregon. Now on first downs, Oregon took that from Washington, 24 first downs to Washington's 22. The money down, third down. Oregon was 9 of 18. That was huge. And Washington was only 6 of 13. On fourth down, the big money down. I call that the big money down because that's very important. Oregon was 3 for 3 on third down today, while Washington was only 1 of 2. Oregon only had 379 yards total offense for the game, and they still won. Washington had 437. Penalties. Oregon was penalized 7 times for 70 yards to Washington's 5 times for 38 yards. Both teams had 1 turnover. And possession. Washington had the ball for 30 minutes, and that was big. And Oregon only had the ball for 29 minutes, 23 seconds. Listen to this number. Listen to this stat. The Washington Huskies are now 1-8 in the last 9 trips to Eugene. The Pac-12 North is now very, very close to being decided. Oregon still has to face Washington State. And I think that, and my memory serves me right, I think that game is next week. I'll have to let me look over the notes here. Let me find the right notes. I know I got them. I know I have them around here somewhere. I apologize for that. But I'm just looking around to make sure everything's on the up and up. Oh, here we go. And I'm going to say this now. The Huskies are now out of the running for any possibility of the college football playoff. All right, now Oregon faces Washington State next Saturday. That is huge. If the Ducks can beat the Washington State Cougars, they win the Pac-12 North. The Pac-12 North is going to be is very close to being decided. Well, let me tell you something. The Huskies played their hearts out. This game went into overtime, and it took a Justin Herbert and it took a touchdown run to win it. And on a first and goal in the first overtime for Washington, they couldn't cash in. They only got a field goal out of it. Oregon is ran into the end zone for the touchdown to win the ball game. Well, let me tell you something. That was the game of the day. Now here's the upset that's going to change everything in the college football playoff. Number 13 LSU upset number 2 Georgia in Death Valley in Baton Rouge. What a victory for the LSU Tigers. They did it. What about that? Joe Burrow, 15 of 30 for 200 yards. He carried the ball 13 times for 66 yards, had 2 touchdowns on the ground. Nick Brissett, 16 carries for 64 yards. He had a touchdown himself. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 19 carries, 145 yards. Justin Jefferson, 6 receptions for 108 yards. LSU dominated this game today. They had the ball for over 33 minutes, and they won it. LSU, let's think about this. Here are the rest of the numbers. First downs, LSU had 20 first downs they converted. Georgia only had 18. LSU went 6 of 19 on third down to Georgia's 5 of 13. On the big money down, fourth down, LSU went 4 for 4 on fourth down today. Georgia only went 0 for 1. Total yards, LSU had 475 yards total offense to Georgia's 322. Penalties, LSU only had 2 penalties for 19 yards to Georgia's 4 for 20. Turnovers is what decided this ball game. Georgia turned the ball over 4 times today. How depressing. Jake Fromm, 16 of 34, 209 yards. He had a touchdown, and he was picked off twice. The only other highlight was Elijah Holyfield, 7 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. LSU, ladies and gentlemen, LSU did exactly what they had to do today. They upset Georgia. Now, all of a sudden, October 27th, mark this down. Georgia and Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, could possibly decide the SEC East. But don't forget, we have Kentucky to deal with. But LSU, this was a huge win for the Tigers, and here's why. November 3rd in Death Valley, they got to face Alabama. And Tua Tagovailoa had to leave the game with an injury. That could be big. If Tagovailoa is not healthy by the LSU game, Bama's in trouble. And that's all there is to it. Now, a lot of people have already said that there could be a lot to think about in the future. But let me tell you something. Joe Burrow did his part. 200 yards passing. He carried the ball for 66 yards, had 2 touchdowns on the ground. And that was where everything was won today. LSU did their part. Now I have to wait and see how the top 4 shakes out. Now the entire top 25 is going to suffer a major shakeup. And that's all there is to it. Now, we've crisscrossed the country from the Big Ten to the Pac-12 to the SEC. Now we go back to the Big Ten. A Big Ten upset today. Michigan State knocked off number 8 Penn State today, 21-17. You listen to these numbers for the game. Michigan State on first down had 25 first downs to Penn State's 14. Penn State on the money down went 3 for 14 on third down today, and they were 0 for 1 on fourth down. Michigan State on third down, they were 5 for 19, and they converted 1 of 2 on fourth down today. That was huge. Total yards for the game. Michigan State had 418 to Penn State's 379. Penalties. Penn State was penalized 6 times for 40 yards, while Michigan State only had 3 penalties for 20 yards. Both teams had 1 turnover. But when you listen to the rest of these numbers, you'll be thinking, how in the world did Michigan State do it? Here's how they did it. Brian Lewerke, 24-52 for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns today. Ladarius Jefferson, 15 carries for 60 yards. He had a touchdown himself. Felton Davis III, 8 receptions for 100 yards. He had 2 touchdowns in the ball game himself here today. Now for Penn State. Trace McSorley, he went 19-32 for 192 yards and a touchdown. He also carried the ball 13 times for 37 yards. Miles Sanders, 17 carries, 162 yards and a touchdown on the ground. KJ Hamler, 5 catches for 66 yards. He had a touchdown through the air. Well, let me tell you something. Penn State gave this game late. Penn State gave this game away late in the final minute. Brian Lewerke converted to a touchdown to Felton Davis late in the ball game. That is how Michigan State won this game today. And this victory was huge. This could get Michigan State back into the top 25. And as far as Penn State goes, winning the Big Ten East and possibly playing for a Big Ten title in the national championship, those are now gone. This is the second week in a row at home. This is the second home game in a row in Happy Valley that the Penn State Nittany Lions gave away a game late. It was bad. I have never seen a performance late in the game. I thought the game against Ohio State was bad. Then they decided to go for it on a 4th and 5 instead of giving it to Trace McSorley to give it to someone else. That was a dumb play call. And all of a sudden, Michigan State puts it in the end zone with less than a minute to go, and they ruined the party for Penn State. But what can you say? The Penn State Nittany Lions are now out of any discussion for a Big Ten championship. Michigan State, they can still spoil the party. They got to face Ohio State on November 3rd. On November 3rd, I do believe. I'll have to recheck the schedule on that. But let me tell you something. Penn State did it to themselves again. Last Saturday, a couple weeks ago against Ohio State, they threw a 12-point lead away. And then today, they give it away on a touchdown pass with less than a minute left. It's disappointing. But Michigan State, hats off to them. They did their part. And that's all there is to it. All right. One last upset that needs to be addressed. And this was, in my opinion, the biggest upset of the day. Number 6 West Virginia goes down to unranked Iowa State. The Iowa State Cyclones have done it again. Apparently, Ames, Iowa is not the place to be when it comes to Big 12. When it comes to other Big 12 teams competing for any possibility of a national title. And I'm going to address that here in a few minutes. But first, let's get the important stuff out of the way. Brock Purdy. He was 18-25, 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He carried the ball 11 times for 39 yards. David Montgomery, 27 carries, 158 yards and a touchdown today. Hakeem Butler, 6 receptions, 107 yards and a touchdown through the air today. What a job by the Iowa State Cyclones. You'll find out what in the world do the Cyclones do to West Virginia. You'll find out here in a second. But first, real quick, Will Grier, everybody's Big 12 Heisman Trophy candidate. 11 of 15, 100 yards, a touchdown, and interception. That was it. And it's David Sills V, his buddy in crime. 2 receptions, 22 yards. That was it for him. Listen to these numbers, and you're going to find out how in the world Iowa State upset West Virginia. And it's going to be very simple. Let me put it to you this way. West Virginia, 9 first downs. They were only 1 of 10 on third down, and they had 152 yards total offense for the game. That was it. West Virginia's offense just plain out sucked. Excuse my language. But as far as Iowa State, 25 first downs, 5 of 13 on third down, almost 500 yards offense for the game, despite the fact they were penalized 10 times for 95 yards, and Iowa State controlled the whole ball game. They had the ball for over 37 minutes. My congratulations to the Iowa State Cyclones. You have done it again. You did it again. You may have ruined any national championship hopes for another Big 12 team. And what else does this mean? It's very simple. The Iowa State Cyclones have thrown the Big 12 race into a tailspin. Everybody was thinking it was going to be West Virginia, Texas on November 3rd. Both teams undefeated, possibly deciding the Big 12 title. I look at it like this now. If Texas beats West Virginia on November 3rd, Texas wins the Big 12. That's all there is to it. And I am a little bit concerned about that because Texas played Baylor earlier today. Texas survived Baylor 23-17. Sam Ehlinger had to leave the game with a shoulder injury in the first quarter. That worries me. However, I will say this. If Texas beats West Virginia, Texas wins the Big 12. If West Virginia beats Texas, then the Big 12 championship is going to be going into a tailspin. I have never seen a sorry performance out of Will Grier in my entire life. But I'll say this. The Iowa State defense came ready to play. But this is what's going to stick out. 9 first downs, 1 for 10 on third down, 152 yards total offense out of the high-flying Mountaineers. Unbelievable. That's all I can say. The Big 12 race has been turned upside down. Now Texas is the only team standing. If they beat West Virginia on November 3rd, they win the Big 12 because they'll have the advantage over everybody, over both Oklahoma and West Virginia. But if Texas loses 2 Big 12 games along the way, it's really going to throw everything into a tailspin because you'll have Texas, because if West Virginia knocks off Texas, it turns everything upside down. If Texas loses the second game, I wouldn't even want to think about it because, it'll just make the West Virginia-Oklahoma matchup on November 23rd just as important. So there's a lot of football yet to be played in the Big 12. But I will say this for the Iowa State Cyclones. My congratulations to you guys. You guys did your job. And I'm going to tell you something. You've also thrown the Big 12 race into a tailspin, into a cyclone. And that's all I can say. That's all I can say. Now, that's all the upsets. But I need to talk about another one. I need to talk about another game that we almost had another upset today. Number 5 Notre Dame escaped over the Pitt Panthers today, 19-14. Ian Book, he was 26 of 32 for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. 16 carries for 31 yards on the ground. Miles Boykin, he took the game on his shoulders, 4 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. Chase Claypool, 5 receptions for 61 yards, he had a touchdown through the air. But I'll give the Pitt Panthers credit. Kenny Pickett, 19 of 28 for 126 yards. Corday Olsen, 16 carries for 50 yards. He had a touchdown. Maurice French, he had a 99-yard punt return for a touchdown early in the game. How in the world did Notre Dame survive this? Well, Notre Dame had 23 first downs to Pitt's 14. They were 7 for 15 on the money down, which is third down. Pitt was only 4 of 12. Notre Dame was 1 of 2 on fourth down. Pitt couldn't convert one. Notre Dame had 344 yards total offense to Pitt's 242. Penalties. Notre Dame was penalized 4 times for 35 yards, while Pitt was penalized 8 times for 80 yards. And despite the fact that Notre Dame turned the ball over twice, they still won. They had the ball for over 33 minutes, and they got the job done barely. Whew. I'm going to tell you something. Notre Dame played awful. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they even think about jumping them over Ohio State, I'm going to be ticked off. But I'm going to tell you something. Ohio State did not look good today either. And that's all there is to it. Notre Dame survived. And I'm going to tell you right now, Notre Dame Fighting Irish fans, you better thank Ian Book and Miles Boykin for saving the day. I'm going to be honest with you. You guys played bad. I mean, Ohio State didn't play good. LSU just humiliated number 2 Georgia. Oregon had to come from behind to beat Washington. Iowa State just flat out ran all over West Virginia like they were nothing. And they stopped the Mountaineers from throwing the Big 12 into a tailspin. But I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to say this. LSU, Alabama. One more time. Mark this down. November 3rd. LSU, Alabama, in Baton Rouge, in Death Valley. The battle for the SEC West is going to get crazy. Also mark this date down. October 27th. Georgia versus Florida in the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. There may be more than cocktails being served. We could be talking about who could be the beast of the SEC East. Because LSU knocking off Georgia has just turned the SEC into a tailspin in the East. LSU may have did Florida a favor, but can the Florida Gators cash in on that? I say yes, despite the fact that Florida had to come from behind to beat Vanderbilt today. There's a lot to think about there, too. It's just been a crazy Saturday, and that's all there is to it. But I'm going to tell you, teams are playing just good enough to win. Now it's crunch time. And that's all I have to say. All right. It is now time to hand out the game balls. And I got a lot of them to hand out. And let's get started with Ohio State, Minnesota. For the Ohio State-Minnesota game, I've got 2 game balls to hand out. They belong to none other than Dwayne Haskins, 412 yards passing and 3 touchdowns today. You get a Scott Manning game ball. Congratulations, my friend, and you've earned it. KJ Hill, he gets a Scott Manning game ball. 9 receptions, 187 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air today. Congratulations, Mr. Hill. You just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. Now, for the Oregon-Washington contest, I have 3 game balls to hand out. And they go to none other than Mr. Justin Herbert, 18 of 32, 202 yards and 2 touchdowns today. You, sir, you get a Scott Manning game ball. And congratulations to you on that. Now, for the other player for Oregon that gets a game ball, C.J. Verdell, 29 carries, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns. You, sir, you get a Scott Manning game ball. And the last recipient for the Oregon-Washington game for the game ball, Dylan Mitchell, 8 receptions, 119 yards and a touchdown. You get a Scott Manning game ball. Congratulations to you 3 gentlemen. You get yourselves a Scott Manning game ball, which is worth a pat on the back. But hey, what can I say? You guys earned them. And you guys played your hearts out today, and you showed me a lot. You showed me the guts and the determination of how you want to win the Pac-12 North. So my congratulations to the 3 of you. Now, for the LSU-Georgia contest, I got 1 game ball to hand out. And that goes to none other than Mr. Joe Burrow, quarterback at LSU, 15 of 30 for 200 yards. He carried the ball 13 times for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. Congratulations, Joe. You just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. Now, for the Michigan State-Penn State contest, there's only one game ball that's being handed out. Quarterback Brian Laricki, 24-52, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns. You, sir, you just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. Congratulations to you. You've earned it. You had to come from behind to beat Penn State. You earned yourself a game ball. Congratulations to you, my man. And I'm proud of you. Whew. For the Notre Dame Pitt game, I got 2 game balls to hand out. I know I shouldn't be handing one out to one, but he brought the Notre Dame back. First, Ian Book, 26 of 32 for 260 yards. 26 of 32 for 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Congratulations, Ian. You got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. Miles Boykin, another reason why Notre Dame came back. 4 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. You, sir, you just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. And my congratulations to you. And now, for the Iowa State, West Virginia shocking blowout of the day. First, for Iowa State, Brock Purdy, 18 of 25, 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. He carried the ball 11 times for 39 yards. Congratulations, sir. As a result of what you did to West Virginia, to the West Virginia defense, you just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. And my congratulations to you. The next recipient for Iowa State, David Montgomery, 27 carries, 158 yards, and a touchdown. You, sir, you just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball, and congratulations to you on that. And the last recipient for Iowa State, Hakeem Butler, 6 receptions, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Congratulations, sir. You just got yourself a Scott Manning game ball. So now, I want to congratulate all my game ball winners. Now, what are these game balls worth? Just maybe a pat on the back. But hey, I just want to show you guys I just want to recognize you guys for all your hard work that you guys did today. Especially Iowa State. You guys just threw the Big 12 race into a tailspin. And Ohio State, Dwayne Haskins has been a recipient before. Some of these guys are repeat recipients. But we got some first-timers like Iowa State, Joe Burrow, Brian Laricki. You guys are first-timers. My congratulations to you guys. You guys have earned them. And now, you normally know I do my game of the day pick and all that. Today, with all the upsets, I had to separate these into 2 categories. Game of the day and upset of the day. First, my game of the day nominees. My game of the day nominations. Here are the nominees for game of the day. Oregon, Washington, 30-27 in overtime. Michigan State, Penn State, 21-17. Notre Dame, Pitt, 19-14. And the winner of the game of the day award goes to Oregon and Washington in that wild shootout, 30-27 in overtime. Congratulations to the both teams. Oregon especially, you may have just clinched the Pac-12 North. If you beat Washington State next week, you've got it. And now, it is now time for my upset of the day pick. You know, if Iowa State had not knocked off West Virginia, this would have gone to LSU, Georgia for sure. But after what I saw earlier, what I saw a little bit ago, I'm not sure now. But you know what? Here are the nominees anyway. The nominees are LSU, Georgia, Michigan State, Penn State, Iowa State, West Virginia. And the winner of the upset of the day award, and the upset of the day award goes to, and the winner is Iowa State knocking off West Virginia in Ames and throwing the Big 12 into a big old tailspin. You know something? Iowa State's done this before. They ruined the party for Oklahoma State about 7 years ago. It's been 2,500 days since Iowa State has ruined the chances of a national title team. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. What a Saturday in college football. What can you say? I have never seen so much happen in one day. Numbers 2, 6, 7, and 8. Let me think here. Numbers 2, 6, 7, and 8 in the country go down. Number 5, Notre Dame nearly went down. Number 3, Ohio State had a battle against Minnesota. And right now, we have a 7-7 ball game out of USC, out of the Coliseum, between number 19 Colorado and unranked USC. It's fairly close to halftime out there. But the Pac-12 North is really out of control. With Washington losing today, and if Oregon beats Washington State, Oregon wins the Pac-12 North, and they'll be playing for a Pac-12 championship. The conference is going to have a one-loss conference. We'll have a one-loss Pac-12 champion, unless Colorado does the impossible and runs the table. Will that happen? That remains to be seen. But the Washington Huskies didn't have anything going late in the game. Yes, they kicked a field goal in overtime, but Oregon ran into the end zone for a touchdown late. And they did the Oregon Ducks did exactly what they had to do. They lost a game to Stanford and Eugene, and Washington gave one away in Eugene today. But what can you say about the whole Saturday? And the bottom line is, it has been a wonderful day. I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and it's been crazy. But let me tell you something. The polls will be coming out will probably be out on Sunday. The new AP Top 25 poll probably comes out on Sunday evening about 6 o'clock. And I'll probably know by Sunday night or even in Monday morning. When the new AP Top 25 poll comes out, the whole landscape of college, the whole landscape is really going to be going through a major shakeup. Well, all you can say is, the only team that's for sure is number 1, Alabama. But with Tua Tagovailoa going out early, and you got to remember too, now he left the game with an injury. Remember, November 3rd, Alabama, LSU, and Death Valley. The SEC West could be decided on that Saturday. But I will say this. It's been crazy. And what else can you say? But the whole top 25 is going to be going through a major shakeup. And that's all you can say on this night. What a day it has been. We're still not done. USC just put it into the end zone for a touchdown to take a 14-7 lead over Colorado. But I'm going to say this, though, in closing. This has been one of the craziest college football Saturdays I've seen. 4 teams in the top 10 go down. Virginia upset Miami today. Auburn's going to be out of the top 25. So there's going to be some major shakeups. But in all honesty, the whole landscape's going to change. And we just finished the 7th week of the season. Week 8 comes up. What will happen in the college football playoff? I'm sure the top four is going to go through a major shakeup. That's all I can say. And now you can cross off West Virginia with having any chance of having any shot at the national title. And as far as David Greer goes and his Heisman Trophy hopes, those may have went away too. And that's all there is to it. And if Texas beats West Virginia on November 3rd, Texas wins the Big 12. And that's all there is to it. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. My next college football show will be Friday night at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. I will get you ready for another very busy Saturday in college football. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me. And when the new AP Top 25 poll comes out, I will have that for you on Monday morning. When the new polls come out, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But Friday night, 10 p.m., same time, same place, for my college football podcast preview show, for the pregame show. And I'll be back at this time at 11:30 or midnight for the postgame show. Thank you guys so much for being with me. I've had a long day, and you guys have a great night. Thank you guys so much for being with me. Have a great night, and thank you so much for being with me. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for being with me, and God bless. 35 minutes.